I'm Marnie.
I'm
and-
Judy.
Yep, and we're covering the healthcare sector.
The healthcare sector represents about 14.9 of the S&P 500 index, and in our holding we have about 14.6%, which is not that far off. And the healthcare select sector spider funds show that the investment result that before expenses correspond to generally the price and yield performance of publicly traded equity securities of a company. So that's basically the select sector shows that how healthcare companies in the S&P 500 are performing relative to all the other ones. And this is a graph just showing how the healthcare sector has performed, and this is the S&P 500. So for about 5 years, the healthcare select sector has been performing better than the S&P 500.
So the industries in the healthcare sector include the pharmaceuticals, biotechnology, and life sciences. The main difference between biotechnology and pharmaceuticals is biotechnology deals with biologic, genetic type of research and development and getting medications created, using biology. Whereas pharmaceuticals, it's all, chemistry and different non-biologic things. And then the life science tools and services is providing analytical tools, instruments, consumables, and supplies, clinical trial services, and contract research services. And then another industry is the healthcare equipment and supplies, which is kind of self-explanatory. The healthcare equipment could be anything from an MRI machine to, the deal the eye doctor uses to puff the air in your eyes. The supplies can be, eye care products, hospital supplies, safety needles, syringe devices, and the list goes on and on. And then healthcare technology is basically the IT consulting services to hospitals and EHR and anything in the technology field within healthcare. And then healthcare provider and services is basically hospitals, which is under the facilities. The distributors are the wholesalers of healthcare products that aren't classified in the other two industries. The healthcare services, which are dialysis services, lab testing services, pharmacy management services, as well as an array of others. And then managed healthcare is like HMOs and PPOs and other things like that to manage healthcare plans.
These are the top players in the healthcare industry. You have Amgen, which is a biopharmaceutical, Biogen, biotechnology, Pfizer, which is biopharmaceutical, Allscripts Healthcare Solutions, which is basically on the technology and services side, and then Nutrisun Corporation, which is supplies and distribution. And the sector performance. So basically, when the economy is doing bad, the healthcare will marginally do bad because everybody needs their medicines and everything. So you're not gonna be like, okay, now that the healthcare, like the economy is doing bad, you're not gonna stop paying attention to your health. But what might change is that people might take out their stocks they have in health and maybe move it to a different industry. Other than that, it's marginally decreases, it's defensive. And when the economy is doing well, the healthcare will perform better because they're not conscious about all the things that's going on with their health, so the healthcare sector will have a lot more people investing in that. This is the Forest 5 forces, and for competitive rivalry, it's high due to the FDA requires all companies to put public information about their medication. So this could cause other companies to go and look at what ingredients they use and tweak it a little bit, and then that will cause competition. And then there are lots of firm mergers. And the threat of new entry is low due to high startup costs and strict federal regulations. Buyer power is low because the insurers are the ones who are generally paying for it. And supplier power is low due to having numerous players in the chemical industry. And the threat of substitution is low because depending on the medication you're taking, the substitutions are not that many because most of the medicines are covered by patent. The healthcare providers and services have medium to high competitive rivalry due to the increasing amount of doctors and technology advances. Fair of new entry is low to medium due to high startup costs, and there's already a market for that. Firepower is medium to high due to substitution options depending on rates. So if let's say a hospital has a certain health records that they use and the rates go higher, they can switch to a different company. And then threat of substitution is low due to lack of options for substitution, because if you need a doctor, you need a doctor. You just can't go to the DUN and be like, okay, tell me I'm okay, and I'll be fine. So if you need a doctor, you always have to go to one. And the supply power is medium, though firms can set their own rates and competition keeps them in line.
So risk factors to coming into this sector. There's interest rate risk, which is kind of the same with all sectors. Credit quality, political risk, foreign exchange risk. There's a lot of global pharmaceutical companies that have that risk. Increased competition from generic drugs, and that's when the patents run out usually, or if they, like she was talking earlier, tweak the mixtures and make something slightly different and patent that instead. And I think a really big one right now is the opioid addiction liability, which opioid addiction is massive in the US right now. So there's a lot of liabilities going on with pharmaceutical companies because of that. And then product liability with pharmaceuticals as well as equipment. If something fails, they could be liable. Technology advances. Every day something is obsolete from yesterday, so every time it advances, something else is going out, and that's another risk factor. Counterfeit drugs and global quality control. A lot of countries across the world do not have a proper quality control, and they kind of let anything in or out to other markets, which is dangerous and a huge risk. And then patent cliffs, of course, the expiration of those patents. And then metrics of performance evaluation. Depending on which industry we're in, like if customer surveys for the product providers and services, customer surveys is a big metrics performance evaluator. As well as continued education. Most doctors are required to do so many CE credits a year to continue their education. I worked at a clinic, in the past that had clinical accreditation, and that's a good metric. It was a huge thing. It took many years to get there, but they, that showed their performance evaluation, and it really spoke a lot for that clinic. Different certifications, and then of course the board of directors, that can kind of show how their performance is depending on what they're doing. So emerging trends impacting the healthcare sector. So President Trump is in the works of changing or disregarding the Affordable Health Care Act, so that's we'll see what happens through his presidency. Changes in the Medicare reimbursement and prices of the Medicare. I know my mom is on Medicare, and she has recently had her Medicare go up, and she doesn't know how she's going to afford it. So that's a big thing. Technology with EHR, I would say most of at least the clinics in Fairbanks have all switched to EHR. And not only have they switched to EHR, they are continuing to switch to different EHRs. And so every time a new and better one comes out, some of them switch anyway to have the money to do it. And then collaboration within the sector. There's a lot of the pharmaceutical companies that are collaborating with global deals, like with the Bayer and, no, I'm not going to be able to remember. But anyways, with the collaboration, it's gonna continue to impact how everything is going on.
Okay, so these are the holdings we have in our portfolio currently. We have the General Pharmaceuticals, and this just shows how many shares we have and at what price we bought it at. We have Allergen, Celgene, Eli Lilly and Co., Cerner Corporation, Healthcare Select Central, which is basically a big fund that invests in different many healthcare stuff, and we have about 482 shares of that. And during the semester, if we do find other healthcare sectors to invest in, we might be taking that off and investing in them too.
So our first one we're gonna go over is Regeneron, which everybody kind of has seen this already a little bit. It's in the biotechnology industry rather. And it does a lot of research and development and creating different medications that, are mainly cancer patients, but it's not limited to just that. And a big headline that is going on right now is that Sanofi and Regeneron are collaborating on Libtayo, another drug for skin cancer. So that was just approved this past week on the 28th.
Next we have is Allergen. It's a pharmaceutical. It's headquartered in Dublin, Ireland, and it's an international company. They focus on producing, developing, and commercializing branded pharmaceutical devices, biologic, surgical, and regenerative medicine products. And most of them are for eye care, central nervous system, women's health, neurology, and anti-infective therapeutic categories. And their recent news is that they're going to buy Bonti, it's a clinical stage, and they use this for cancer treatment in neurotoxins. And its trading price at 254.78. Its PE ratio is at 76.3G, and its earnings per share is $2.56. They're currently a mature company with growth periods, but occasionally they decline.
So next we have Celgene Corporation. It's another biotechnology and biopharmaceutical. It does basically a similar thing to the Regeneron. It's researches, develops, creates. Their lead product is Revlimid. They also have some other ones that Thalidomide is for multiple myeloma, which is a cancer of the plasma cells. And they also create medications for ADHD, which Vocalin is one of those. And then the headline is Celgene backs away from licensing Oncom naviciximab antibody designed to induce anti-tumor responses while mitigating certain angiogenic related toxicities.
What does that mean?
I don't know.
I think it's for a cancer treatment.
And yeah, it's creating anti-tumor responses. So while mitigating certain.
So do you think this is a material development, like something, when I say material development, that means it's a change in the company in a way that's so big that it impacts their stock price dramatically?
It could.
If it gets approved at the very end.
Because it sounds like they're not licensing whatever this thing is.
Yeah.
Right.
So unless investors already expected them and they'd like announced publicly that they were planning on licensing and it's like the last minute and they back out of the deal, then maybe that's a big deal, but
Right.
otherwise maybe not.
Next we have Eli Lilly and Co., which is a pharmaceutical. Headquarters are in Indianapolis, and they discover and develop and manufacture and sell pharmaceuticals both for humans and animals. Their lead product, I bet you've all seen the commercial for Cymbalta, which is an antidepressant. Its target price is at 90.90. Its PE ratio is 53.16, and it's at $4.56. It's a growing company, and they've recently got tax breaks from Indianapolis of about $9.3 million, and this will probably most likely help in research and development of their other products that they have.
have Cerner Corporation, which is the healthcare services and supplies. They are mainly in EHR, which is the electronic health records, but they also supply healthcare solutions and services. Their leading product is the Cerner Millennium, and their headline is the Cerner Department of Veterans Affairs officials overseeing the project to build a new electronic health record system resigns. So that could possibly affect share prices, depending on what people thought of that person.
And then this is the healthcare select sector, which is healthcare services and technology, and its headquarters is in Boston. So the description is the exchange traded fund incorporated in the U.S. and they provide investment results that correspond to the S&P 500. We don't have a target price on it currently, and the PE ratio for 1 year forward is 17.65. Its EPS for the estimated 85 years is 11.51%. And say it's mature while growing. Headlines are it's number 3 in the returns for the U.S. sectors. This is just a pie chart kind of showing the difference between the index and the fund. That's almost the same.
Yeah, so I think the other ladies who are going today, I think we also have an ETF in the finance sector. So what we do if we're underweight a sector, like significantly underweight, sometimes we buy an ETF, so it's not like a specific stock holding, right? It's just supposed to reflect the entire sector overall, because we think that it's better to hold the entire sector overall, or some kind of proximity to of that, or proxy of that, as opposed to putting our money in cash, right? Okay, so you guys did 5 forces on the pharma industry and on healthcare providers. So based on your 5 forces analysis, which of those 2 industries do you think are more attractive?
For people to join or
For us as investors.
As far as money goes, pharmaceuticals, I would think there's a lot of money in pharmaceuticals, especially with all the advances they have now. But that's not to say that there isn't a lot of advances with healthcare providers, but I mean, pharmaceuticals can sell their medications at ungodly prices and raise a lot of profit.
So pharma companies definitely have higher profit margins. It doesn't necessarily make them a better investment, but one of the reasons why I have you guys do 5 forces analysis is to think about the overall risk factors in the industry as well, right? So pharmaceuticals are also, in some ways, a more risky business because it's lumpy. There's not like steady profits. You develop a drug and either it's a success or it's not, but you spend a lot of money developing that drug, right? And it takes a long time. So the risk profile of pharmaceuticals is a little bit different than for, say, healthcare providers, where there's a more even stream of income, and it tends to be more recession-proof because the provision of healthcare is really kind of a necessity and not like a luxury, right? Where some of the pharmaceutical treatments we're talking about, like I give the example of Allergan, since that's a company we have in our portfolio that makes Botox. These things are considered pharmaceuticals, but they're not necessities. So you mentioned a little bit about the difference between biotechnology and pharmaceutical companies. One uses organic, or what you call biological, kind of technology to create medicines. The other one uses strictly chemical, so non-organic. Do you think those industries look pretty similar, or are there any differences between them, just based on what you generally know about them?
I feel like they do have a portion where they're kind of similar in the things they do.
Are you talking about the actual creation of, like, the lab portion of it?
No, just generally the risk profile of the industry. Remember, from this class, we're always taking the perspective of an investor.
Right.
So you're looking at Well, first of all, there are a lot of companies that are described as both pharma and biotechnology companies. But if you're looking at a purely pharmaceutical company and a purely biotechnology company, like, are they gonna be equally risky? Are they gonna look different? Or are they gonna be very similar?
I guess it's just my opinion because I don't actually know, but I would feel the pharmaceutical company is a little bit riskier dealing with all the chemicals as opposed to, you know, biological, you know, technology. Just because, I guess, you know, like stem cell research, that would have been biotechnology in a way, right? That,
Yeah, that would fall under probably bio. I'll just tell you, like a pharmaceutical company would develop some chemical developments tend to be a lot simpler than organic developments. So biotechnology companies tend to be, in some ways, a little bit more expensive or more risky, because it's more expensive to develop a biological treatment for a condition. They tend to be treating more complex diseases, and they tend to be considered higher tech and like newer or more emerging technology. So I'd keep that in mind when you're looking at companies and thinking about, like, you know, this company makes aspirin and this company has a cure for like stage 4 cancer. They're going to look different, okay? Okay, that's all I had. Any questions from the peanut gallery?